Talk shoes. Recorded live.
Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you may be across the nation or around the world. Once again, you are listening to the VMware Communities Roundtable podcast. This is podcast number 682. My name is Eric Nielsen. With me today, I have my favorite co-host, Corey Romero. Today is Wednesday, March 6th, 2024. Corey, how you doing today?
Eric, doing well, doing very, very well. Things going great with vExperts, and things going well. How are you?
I'm doing great. We've been still in stormy weather. We've been getting a lot of storm in the Bay Area, so the bay is flooded and brown murky. The color of the bay is just half the mountain is just washing away now. We've had quite a lot of rain over the last month and a half or so. Reservoirs are all full, aquifers filling back up, and so California is classic wet winter season. How about out there in Utah? I suppose you're getting some snow.
We did last week. We got a whole bunch of snow, and then we just today's got sun. We actually had the people out taking the lights off the roof from last Christmas. Everything's thawed enough for them to pull the lights away from the roof. But hopefully we get whatever storm's coming out of California is rain for us and not more snow. That's what I'm hoping.
Yeah. Get some nice weather. Well, on the show today, it's just going to be me, Corey, and Julia Klaus. Julia Klaus is back in the house, so we're going to talk to Julia a little bit as we get started in the 2024 season. There's a lot going on, so for the agenda today, we thought we would just talk a little bit about Flings, what's been going on with Flings. They've been up, they've been down. Where are they? So we thought we'd just give you a summary of where Flings are. They're back up now. We've been delivering Flings all day today, which has been great. We'll talk about that. ESXi free. We're going to talk a little bit about ESXi free and the history behind it, Hyper-V, and the fact that it's going away. What are your advantages? Where can you get VMUG Advantage? So we'll talk a little bit about VMUG. They had a live stream session happen, so we'll talk a little bit about that. And then we can talk a little about licensing and talk about the history of licensing, a little VRAM licensing from 2011 back in the Paul Moritz days, and what happened to VRAM licensing, and then talk about what's happening with vSphere Standard and Enterprise and VCF and VBF. So maybe we'll talk a little bit about that and give you some insights, my own insights, Corey's insights, and then a little bit about subscription and where the industry's going. So I think all of these have been top of mind from the VMUG All Hands that happened last Friday. So talk a little bit about all of that, and then just do a little bit of roundtable. So to get started, let's chat with Julia. Julia Klaus, you're back. You're back at work. Why don't you tell us a little about a history of what happened over the last year and what you're working on as you come back? And you're muted.
Hi, of course. So yes, I'm back after an immersion of 3 months on maternity ward, and I'm really glad to be back finally and chat and see people and talk to the community again. This year, of course, a lot of things going on. We're going through a big migration from the Chorus to a higher logic platform. It's going to happen in 45 days, so we are running with that, but we're in good shape there. We have everything mapped and all the data exported, and we're ready to start the migration. And I'm excited to work on that. We also have, of course, VMware Exploring coming this year. And last year I was not able to be in the show. So this year I'm very excited because I will be overseeing the community booth and the community team at VMware Explore, and I will be there as well. So there's a lot going on.
So before you just say it all at once, let's just pick that apart and say, okay, so first off, you're back from a leave, right? And so because this is your first time back, you're kind of like a new person to the Broadcom environment. What's your impressions of now coming back to work at now Broadcom?
I was a bit scared coming back, but I'm I'm discovering a totally new word right now with Broadcom, and I will be honest, I'm pleased, I'm surprised on a very positive way. I have very good interaction with the Broadcom team, and we're able to keep our community together, our VMware, our branding under the main Broadcom community, and I'm excited to see the whole family back together again. And I was happy to know that the community remains here, and that was my a big motivation for me to come back. And I'm really excited about it.
Yeah, so I would say the same thing, that the community is essentially. I had a meeting with somebody this morning on the Explore team about running the different campaign moments. They have different timelines for they call them offers, right? You know, the pre-reg announcements, and then and they call these things offers. And they were like, so what's left, because they hadn't talked to us in 6 months, right? So they came back like, what's left? And I went, well, everything is left. Everything is the blogs is left, podcasts are left, the advocacy VMware.com is left, VMware.com is still here, everything, and the community team is here. Julie is still here, Corey's still here, Noel Greer's still here, Frankie we added to the team. He's running blogs and running code, so a little bit of shuffle, but code's still here. So everything is here. What's your impression of the speed of Broadcom, or how hard they work? Do you notice any difference?
Broadcom move fast. That's what I'm experiencing. We have 45 days for day 2, and we will have the migration completed by day 2. So hard worker, very good culture. They're very interactive, and the synergy between the Broadcom and VMware, I could not expect better. I think the impressions could not be better.
Yeah, I think that it's interesting to hear your perspective, not just because you're just saying this. I think you're telling us the truth, right? Which is that they work hard. Everybody works hard, and they're more open than VMware was, right? Like when you reach out to somebody from a different group in Broadcom, they're like, they take their meeting, they get on their meeting on time. They're responding to their action items. They're offering suggestions on how to move faster, connecting with different people. I've found that not only do they move fast, but they move effectively fast, right? They're an effective organization, better than VMware.
And they're very cohesive. They share knowledge with us. They are not closed. They don't keep anything just for them. They're so open. I feel like they have the arms open for VMware.
Right. Now that's interesting, because I know that they've laid off a ton of people, right? So it's not that they were open to everybody, right? They definitely are efficiency minded, right? They're efficiency minded, right? I know there's a platform that we've been on for like 6 or 7 years, and we went back to the vendor to negotiate a new contract, and the vendor tried to raise the price by 30% or 25%. And so Broadcom just went, no, we're not going to pay that. And they dropped them. Boom. That was it. A week later, we're making plans to go to a new platform, got a different platform that's cheaper, negotiate a new price. They're just like efficient, right? And they don't dilly-dally on decisions. It's the Broadcom way is they give you an opportunity, you work hard. If you're a vendor, you work hard, you give a good price. If you don't, lower prices. If you're not sharpening pencils, they just drop you, right? So yeah, very, very good. Well,
for me, with on my end, what the most important for me was just observe the way they treat the community, and seeing how they are supportive for VMware community, for our keeping our branding or our programs. That said a lot for me. That was
no question. Corey got to have fun with the branding people, and vExpert by Broadcom had to, all we had to do is buy Broadcom, right? That was pretty much the only change, right?
Yeah.
That happened. And Corey, you got done with the vExpert Awards, and you're working with BUs now. What's your perspective on the sub programs and the pickup with new leadership in the sub programs?
I'm seeing a lot more people being a lot more eager to be involved in the sub programs. This year we've got, in past years we've had one, maybe two people in leading the sub programs, and these are all volunteer positions, right? Like this isn't the day job stuff for these folks, but they've got just as much as interest in community and customers as we all do. And so there's a lot of people reaching out saying, hey, I want to help with this program. So we've got 2 to 3 people per sub program this year. And the emails for everything sub program related will go out either this Friday or probably next Monday once I have all the details gathered up and together. But it was really, really cool to see on how well Broadcom wants to work with the experts, especially from VCF, right? We've never had anyone who's a representative from a business unit come to us and say, hey, we want to involve ourselves in community. Normally it's us reaching out to them and trying to dig around, trying to find someone who's willing to come help. Where this time it's complete opposite. And, we're always open to that, of course, right? And it's just going to make things better for community. So
I think I always joked around, behind the scene where we would talk about the fact that we were spending 20 or 30 million dollars on lead gen marketing, right? Like that the marketing focus at the time VMware ran it and our previous CMOs, it was all lead gen. Yeah. And we used to scratch our head and laugh and go like, yeah, they would put out they'd put out dummies guides and then try to generate lead gen on it. And I would just cringe and go like, why are we putting out dummies guides? This is like disgusting. Like I just couldn't. I just
salty almost.
And it was like right. And then what leads would they get back? We're in 1,000 of 1,000 Fortune 1,000 companies. So it's like, what are you going to get? You're going to get the names you already have, or you're going to get people that putting in like Donald Duck and Mickey Mouse and Harry Potter, right, and in your lead gen because they want to get some article or there's some free points they want to get. So like I always looked at all of that marketing spend, and then we couldn't get anybody from the BUs because we would have meetings and they would actually say, well, how much do we have to spend? And I'm like, you don't have to spend anything. This is community. You just got to show up. And they're like, oh, we can't show up. We have to have an agency and we have to spend money, right? Like we can't. And I used to just cringe because like the mentality of VMware marketing was you spend money to have some marketing agency do some pretty brand stuff with a bunch of people smiling, right? And it's like, or a dummies guide, right? Where when we talk to Broadcom now, it's like 180 flip, right? It's like what we would do if we were over there. We'd be like, yeah, we need to put some people, get them to talk to the community, have them go to VMUGs, have them participate in sub programs. It's like night and day, right? That's my impression.
Yep. Same with mine. Yeah, same with mine. I remember, reaching out to folks in the past about, just the sub programs, and the first question was, what's it cost? What do I need for budget? And it was like, right, nothing. We run this on free. This is information sharing, right? That's what the community is after. And
Yeah. All right. Well, Julia, welcome back. I'm glad you have a good impression of everything. I'm looking forward to getting V Brown Bag plugged into the community sessions, the code sessions. Frankie's been working on code. We had our meeting with Alistair Cook the other day, right, for V Brown Bag. He's off, doing his thing. So we'll get back to him, but we're excited about that. And I know that Call for Papers will launch sometime, I think, on the 25th of March. So we got all that going. We'll have code, and we'll have V Brown Bag with a community theater, and we're going to do a VMUG integration this year. So should be a lot of fun, with community again this year, right? Like, and in tech, that's the best you can do is every year come out with that. And, we're working with Alan Renouf again, William Lamb, everybody is working with us, same kind of crew. So let's talk now, Corey, about Flings. So, we've had trouble with Flings. Flings moved to the community platform, right? We made it used to be the office of the CTO. The office of the CTO got collapsed and they were out of the Fling business. And William Lamb came up to us and said, hey, looking for a place to own Flings. So then we were up and down. What's the deal?
Yeah. So What do you mean exactly? What's the deal?
What's the deal? Why did Flings disappear? Where did Flings go? Then they were up for a while, then they disappeared, and then they were down for a couple weeks.
Yeah,
and
yeah,
now
yeah.
they're back up. So
Yeah, they've been
I can sell the narrative, but I'm just going to let you do it.
Yeah, well, I mean, I did some coding last night. You know, it was actually took me quite a long time to get this part done, but you know, like we're always happy to help the community, of course, right? And you know, anytime that I can turn around a project, fairly quickly to support that, I'll go and do like we did with Flings last night. So yeah, Flings were down. We need to have a license agreement up. So we put up a license agreement, and then there was another task that we needed to do, which was secure the downloads. And so we had trouble with that, right? Because we're a fairly small team, and we do a ton for what for each person. And one of my side deals have always been, write some code for a community platform, and doing that since 2007 when I started at VMware. So they were down for a little bit, and yesterday we.
So the question for you is, do you know why they were down?
I do not know exactly why they were down. No.
All right, they were down because we had them on a download center, and the URLs were open. So anybody could get to those URLs, the download URLs, download 3, which they've always been available, right? They were on the Office of the CTO website. You'd come through. You have to accept a license agreement. So in order to accept a license agreement, you click yes, accept the license agreement. We track that person, your user ID, community ID. You accept the license agreement, and then you can go download software because you accepted the license agreement. Mm-hmm. Broadcom security ops did not like the fact that you could get to the URL directly on the Akamai servers, right? So download 3, you could get in. And so SecOps were bothering us since like early January. Then this is the Broadcom security operations, right? Reached out to us going, hey, we've discovered that you can get at these URLs without accepting the license agreement. Right. And that violates our security. That's all kind of legal issues. Right. And
yep.
It was import export risk, because you're not allowed to export to certain geos. You have to accept license terms. And the fact that we had these open URLs were not acceptable. Right. And then you could share them with everybody, and pretty soon everybody could be getting everything. Right. Without us being able to track it. So then the SecOps shut us down, saying you can't have those download 3 URLs open to the public, right? So okay, now we have to put them on community, but they're still on download 3, so we had to then shut off access to download 3 unless we authenticated them. But Akamai doesn't have an authentication happiness mode. You have to build an application, right? Which you tried to build and looked at it and went, we can't build that. That's going to be too hard in the 2 months we have before we move to a new platform, right? So this is a whole 2-month window that we're moving to a whole new platform that has this all solved for Flings, new Flings site, new Flings distribution model, and it's on community, but it's a new community platform called Higher Logic. Everything has been solved, right?
Right.
But for the next 2 months, or since January, security ops have been saying, hey, you can't have Flings open to the general public. When are you going to fix it? And we were like, oh, we're fixing it, 2 weeks from now. We try to mislead them and direct them in different places to let them go away. But they wouldn't go away. And eventually they shut us off, right? Last Friday or last Thursday, they shut us off, right? How do we resolve this? Well, you built a nice little pop-up that says, hey, email eric.nielsen@broadcom.com, and I will then send you a link to a Dropbox private distribution, right? That'll only be good for X amount of time, like a week and a week or 3 days or whatever it is. And then you'll get that Dropbox. You can go download your Fling, and then your Fling goes away, so that we're actually verifying that anybody that wants a Fling has accepted the license agreement. All right. That's what you did. And you built us that for us. You also built us a pop-up for the license agreement acceptance. Yeah.
Yep. Did both of those. Yeah, I didn't know the back end piece to that. So, filling that in with the SecOps. So yeah, thanks.
Yeah, I thought
I
you
was
knew
missing
that.
that.
It's like, I thought,
I
well,
read
you
I
tell us
read a
that.
little bit of that in the background email yesterday, but I was moving at such quick speed. I thought that might have been it, but I wasn't 100% sure.
So you worked till like, I don't know, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock your time last night. I was online sitting in my kitchen marble, answering your questions and testing for you. And we got it done like a 9 p.m. last night, where we managed to make the pop-up work, make the thing live. We got everything uploaded to a Dropbox that we can control access to. We enabled the access, got the access links. And then you turned it on last night, and I think William Lamb must have tweeted it out this morning, because I got maybe 30 or 40 requests today.
Oh, very cool.
Right? All of a sudden, just everybody seemed to know about it, and I sent them out immediately. Just copy and pasted, responded to paste, got everybody their links, and now I'm getting maybe one every other hour or so. Right, so we had a flurry of those, and now we're good to go. So.
You have a lot of more emails now because you said your email on the podcast.
Yeah, but that's okay.
I might edit out.
Nobody bothers me in email. The funny thing is, in my header has my cell phone number too. So if you do ask for a fling, you'll get my cell phone number, and it says, feel free to text me. Right. So I'm an open kind of guy. I always have my phone. So that was good. So thanks for that work. So that's the status of Flings, right? Flings are supported. Flings, William Lamb has been killing it on Flings. We got, I think 40 or 50 Flings in there now, right? He's been slowly putting them all back in, which is good. And you can go to communities.vmware.com and click on the Flings tab up at the top right, accept the license agreement, and then anything you want to download that was on the download center, it'll pop up, a mail with the fling that you wanted. And usually I'm responding within the hour or two, and you get your download link, and you'll be on your way. So flings are there. Now come, I think it's May 4th, which is our day 2 migration to the new platform. Flings will go into the new platform. It has a new center. It has a new look and feel, and it won't be this send Eric mail anymore. This was just a stopgap to make sure people could still get access to Flings. Then everything is automated. There's an app for it, and you should be able to get your Flings by just accepting terms of the community, and away you go. Right, so it should be smoother. But so Flings are completely supported. But Corey, this is kind of the world we live in when we talk about, there's a lot of platform transition. Mm-hmm. There's some legal things that have to, but they're generally very supportive of what we're doing. But we've just had to do a lot of work to, keep, moving forward while it's like living in a house where you're building an extra room or two, right?
Right.
Yeah, I would say that. And that's what I say, like, from a work perspective, you've been busy, right? Like, you've had a lot of stuff on your plate.
This is the busiest I've ever been. Yeah. There's been.
Yeah. I feel like we used to joke back in the old days about how we were on the cruise, the Love Boat, right? We were on a cruise because VMware was such a happy place, and we're always having these nice little parties and get-togethers, and like every once in a while we get a new boss, and then we're like, oh gosh, the cruise boat has landed, and we have to come off the cruise boat, and
one time it sank.
yeah, exactly. And so I think that now I feel like the cruise boat, basically landed, we got off, and they sank it in the harbor, right? And now we're like, everybody's working really hard, right? Like all the same programs, a lot of the same stuff, just navigating platforms and procedures and everything. And that's what we'll talk about next. So we should, we'll talk about, ESXi and free. That's another one. So that puts Flings to bed. So anybody out there that's wondering where, why, what was going on with Flings, bumpy, it's just been a transition as we move to the new platforms that we're supporting in Flings. And Flings will be self-serve for the BUs and for the divisions and for people in the company. If they have a Fling, they can go in, they can add it and then publish it. And so we'll be in full business with Flings like we always have. Now, interestingly, Broadcom when we first talked to them, they're like, you can't give away software. Like, what are you talking about? What does unsupported software even mean? So it took us a little time to educate them on what, community and code and, what a Fling actually is and why it's important for everybody to have the ability to make these cool tools and then publish them. And then some number of Flings do get productized, but then the rest of them just kind of hang out as kind of cool community projects. So it is interesting.
Yeah, I did make a shortener, a link shortener, so I can say the link here to get to Flings. Like Eric said, you can go to communities, click on the Flings tab. You can also go to via.vmw.com/flings, and that'll get you there as well. And Eric, if you don't mind, before we transition, I wanted to give a shout out to Richard Van Danzig at ITQ and all the ITQ V experts. I looked at, how many, I noticed a pattern this year where there were a lot of applications coming from certain companies, right? ITQ only has 165 people in the company period. They have 39 V experts, and some of them go back, to the beginning of the program, 14, 15 years. And so, those guys have been doing a fantastic job. So I just wanted to give a shout out to ITQ, and working with a couple other companies as well, and working with like a single point of contact for them on how to engage their people for V expert applications in the program. So pretty cool stuff.
That's awesome. My only feedback is ITQ, get a life. What are you guys doing over there?
Oh, they're killing it. They're awesome. They're awesome.
Tech geeks. So my wife says, what are you going to do when you get older? Want to retire? And I'm like, I'm going to die at my keyboard, right? This is my life. I don't have any other life. This is what I got 4 kids and they're all in colleges and they're all getting married and all that kind of stuff. But if you ask what dad's hobby is, it's like, LS minus L. Right?
Yeah, that's what mine's been for the past 4 weeks.
CDF.
Yeah, right. If I'm not asleep, I'm at my desk working.
Right. Working on something, right? So it is definitely good. All right, on the agenda, the other next item we have ASXi free, right? So we were on the VMUG conference call last Friday. Brad Tompkins did a great hour-long kind of call to let all the VMUG community members come in and voice their concerns, listening to things, and just getting the information out to everybody, right? That was the idea behind it. The first one, we had like 2,000 people on the call. I'm not sure. I never got metrics on how many came last Friday, but we went through the BUs and had BUs get answers and gave the answers back to Brad, so he would be able to talk from the last call to this call on some of the answers. And, one of the things that's been in social is ESXi, and ESXi, the free edition, right? It's been free, right? And I run it in my rack in San Jose. So I have a rack with a buddy, and we run VMs there, and we goof around, and we just have space to put compute. And I got a couple micros, super micros in there, right? That I put VMs in, and so it's kind of fun. But guess what I run on it? I run ESXi. Right. The free edition. Why? Because I don't have to worry about licensing. I can just go get a free edition of ESXi. I'm not vMotioning my VMs around from point A to point B. So ESXi was nice because it was free. And I just could go online, VMware.com had a place. Took me a little bit of time to figure out where to go get that free license key forever on ESXi. But I could get it, and then I was in business, and I don't vMotion, I get a handful of VMs, so it's no big deal. And so it's kind of like my home lab that's now in a rack that I get faster internet connection to my home lab. But one of the things, Corey, that was announced was the end of life of ESXi. And there have been a lot of people in social that have been talking about it, right? I don't know if, Corey, I guess the question for you is, have you noticed these conversations in Slack channels?
Slack channels and Reddit and a couple other community platforms too. Yeah, right. Absolutely.
And I noticed there's been a lot of YouTubers out there that have also, that have also taken up and made these, nastygram YouTube videos. And I swear they must be funded by Nutanix or Microsoft Hyper-V or other people who obviously would like to get our customer base, right, and view this as an opportunity. But I want to talk a little bit about that. And the history of ESXi was back in the day. And this is, I think, 2004, 2000. no, 2007, somewhere around there, where Microsoft did come out with Hyper-V, and they announced it as free, right? And we're like, oh no, like Microsoft's going to do what they did to Netscape, right? Netscape came along and they came out with IE, Internet Explorer, right?
Mm-hmm.
And made it bundled it with the operating system. And 3 years later, Netscape didn't exist, right? And that was the big concern, was that, oh, here we go again. VMware is going to go out of business. Their products are old and blah 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 and expensive, and why would anybody use it when you can get Hyper-V for free? So ESXi was kind of released as part of that, combat the Microsoft's going to put us out of business strategy, right? And if you look at what we did with that, we also embedded that in the Dell hardware. So you could buy a Dell server, and at no extra cost, because it was free, you would get ESXi just embedded in the server, right? And that was kind of the deal, right? And that left over, and it was there for a lot of years. And there are a lot of small shops that went, oh gosh, look, we can just run on ESXi. But the reality is, for a lot of people, that's just, that period of time was something we need to respond for Microsoft. But in the end, you're not going to stay on ESXi for very long. You're going to need vMotion. You're going to have to manage your compute resources in your VMs. You're going to have to back them up. There's a limited amount that you should be doing with ESXi. And so it was kind of this leftover vestige. We started to go to hyper-converged infrastructure. So instead of embedding it, ESXi on a Dell, server, we started to go, full-on hyper-converged infrastructure where everything's bundled, the whole payload's bundled. So the need for an ESXi free kind of hung out there. From a commercial perspective, it wasn't really that valuable. From a community perspective, and from a education licensing or education perspective, let's not talk education licensing quite yet, because that's later. I think the need for a free ESXi, and people can beat me up for this, but in the end, your career is not going to be based on ESXi, a free edition, right? Maybe if you're in some educations, maybe. But the reality is, you really want a high-end, you're making, if you're a good admin, you're making 150 grand a year, right? Maybe you're making less in some, cheaper states, right? We're in California, Nevada, some of the West Coast states are expensive. East Coast states are expensive. So maybe if you're in, Iowa or Kansas City, maybe you're in a lower, but most admins nowadays making 150 a year. ESXi free isn't going to make or break your career either way. What's going to make or break your career is getting enough value from the software infrastructure projects to allow your company to pay you $150,000 a year being an admin, right? So focusing on some cheap product is kind of like, yeah, maybe you should focus on high-end products, because that's what's going to make your salary go up, right? I think if you start looking at, open source, super cheap, you tend to, put yourself out of business, right? I think that, and Corey, I don't know if you feel that same way, or what your expectation is, that, or what the feedback on the Slack channels are. But for me, I think there's one market, which is getting a free product for you to use in your home lab kind of environment. And then there's the other thing of where you're running it, what you're running in a corporate environment. And do you really think ESXi is what should be running in a corporate environment? For me, the answer is no. But for the home lab thing, I think it's an issue.
Yeah, that you hit it right on the nail, right top of the head right there. That's exactly what I've been hearing and reading as well. Is a lot of the complaints where a lot of the home labbers, people starting out, could have needed this or could have used that, right? And and like you said, at your career level, you're not going to be using that, right, at all, right? You're going to be using the top tier applications programs in your data center, right? Even in your home lab, right? We've got vExperts, who run massive home labs and even smaller home labs. ESXi works in there, yeah, it absolutely does. But vExperts, they for the most part are running fairly large labs, And but yeah, I hear the argument of that, and it's all related back to the home lab.
But then I go, well, wait, if you're a V-Expert and you're on the
Mhm.
Slack channels for V-Expert, don't you have, V-Expert licenses
Yeah.
that are all free, right?
Well,
Like,
they're making the argument for the person who doesn't is what it is. They're not arguing that, hey, I needed it myself. Yeah, absolutely. They're running the home labs with the vExpert licenses that they get.
yeah, I think that's, so that's why I think there's a lot of, FUD, fear, uncertainty, and doubt around that. But then if I ask people, well, are you using it? They're like, well, no, I'm not,
No.
because I'm working with Advantage members at VMUG, vExperts. Probably if you're listening to this podcast, you're not reliant on your ESXi, license either. Now, maybe you've used it like I have. I'm a vExpert. I can go get my vExpert license, no problem, right? But I just happen to set one up using ESXi free license, and I have to go, fix that at some point. Now, by the way, they're not turning off ESXi. If you have it, it still runs for me, right? The license was a non-expiring license, but when I go to upgrade or when I go to need a new version of it, I'm not going to be able to do that, right? So it is going to, there's a timer on that for sure. But then for VMUG Advantage, $200, and you're supporting the community, right? I would say it's one of the better Christmas presents you can possibly buy yourself, right? Is to join, 12,000 people that have also bought the Advantage license, because I think they're up to 12 or 13,000 a year. That funds about 50% of all VMUG activities, right? That's half their budget. Right. And so you're funding the community, or you're funding VMUG, the community, and all the VMUG, your local chapter meetings, all that. You're going to meet a bunch of people. It's going to accelerate your career. You're going to get your $200 back, right? It's the best $200 you can buy. So really, all the people that are complaining about ESXi, I kind of go, well, why aren't you a community member? Why aren't you just getting your VMUG Advantage license? And by the way, it's a subscription, so they'll just re-invoice you every year, and you turn it into your company, right? And say, hey, I want this. This is good for my career. You get the discounts on everything. I'm like, okay. When people are upset about it, I kind of go like, well, then you're telling me that you're not really part of the community. So I think there's an element to that. Me and Tony Foster are in a conversation of how would we get something low cost to education, right? Like if you're a college student, maybe that should be $20, not 200, right? Because there isn't a college student out there that can't afford $20 for, that's like a couple, you can do it, right? But 200, I get it. If you're a student, you're not making any money yet, you definitely will, you look for some other way of doing that. But on the other hand, this is a Rolls Royce of career movement, right? You're on vSphere, you get the whole license kit instead of just using a free ESXi, which doesn't teach you about vCenter, it doesn't teach you about vMotion, it doesn't teach you about any of the other stuff that's out in the VMware Standard Edition, which is vSphere. I would almost argue that you should be running ESXi. You should be running something that's a deeper thing for your lab environment. So
absolutely, it's going to grow your knowledge, your career, everything.
Right. So I look at one of these moments and I go, okay, a lot of fear, uncertainty, and doubt, a lot of people complaining. And I'm trying to listen. I'm trying to digest it. I don't want to be cold and not say that we're not listening. Mm-hmm. But I don't think I have any say in the matter. But I would say if I analytically look at this, it's like, no, you should just be an Advantage member, or you should be, a vExpert, or you should just be buying the Standard Edition for, $3,000 a year and using it in production, right? Like, so for me, I just don't see that, other than it was a vestige of the Hyper-V Microsoft competition days of Netscape and Internet Explorer fear back in the day. And that was 20 years ago. So I think we can get over that, right? And understand that we're all making a lot of money now running infrastructure, and you really should be upskilling to VCF anyway, right? Where you're using NSX and you're using vSAN, and so for me, it makes a lot of sense.
And that's really the message there, right? Like that's really the message, because there's, but going back to what your fear statement, there's a lot of conversations is, oh, Broadcom's taking away something else. Broadcom's doing something else to destroy this. That's not what it is, right? Like Broadcom, if you think about it, is actually doing you a favor by doing this, because you should be running these other products. $200. I mean, $200, sure, absolutely, but I mean, there's a lot of other advantages that come with just besides licenses. You get discount. What is it? I think you get $100 off Explore alone, right? So you can get your money back fairly quickly between training and certifications and everything else.
Now, the other funny thing that people don't really understand here is that VMware's wanted to do this for like 10 years. This is not something that Broadcom made up and went, oh, like, hey, I want you must do this. It's not Hock-Tan and Broadcom, right? Like, and I shouldn't mention his name. Like, it's not Broadcom as the evil empire, right? It's actually VMware has wanted to do this for like 8 or 10 years, right? And they just didn't. There was just no moment in time where that they felt it was the right time to do it. Right. Because somebody was always looking at the next year, bottom line, they were trying to compete and they didn't want to deal with this. So they were not making the hard choices, right? They were not turning off projects that were costing a lot of money, that didn't get us anything, that made it hard to afford the Palo Alto campus, right? Like, in the end, there was a lot of things that were inefficiencies. There's a story, about how much it costs us to do a quarterly all hands, right? We closed down the gym. They put a rubber pad across the whole gym. They built stages. They built video camera. They hired a video camera service to come in and video record the all hands, the quarterly all hands. They had colors, they had decorations, they had, free giveaways, all that. So the budget for the quarterly all hands was $80,000 a quarter, right? To run the all hands. And this stuff is just, nobody was willing to turn it off, right? It becomes kind of culture to do these things, right? And it costs real money, and that's that real money that you're not putting into the products, right?
Right.
All hands for Broadcom, they take Zoom on the laptop, they turn it in front of the people, and they do the all hands. Cost zero, right? So I look at some of these projects that they're turning off, and I'm like, okay, we're spending money on this. It was a lot of work. It wasn't a lot of value to our customers or to us, but yet nobody was willing to bite the bullet and turn some of the stuff off. So I look at ESXi and I go, yeah, that wasn't Broadcom. That was us saying, hey, Microsoft's not out there anymore in the same way. And yeah, we have to figure out how to, just like we're figuring out how to support Flings, we now have to figure out how to support education students and other edge cases, which I'm sure we will, just like we've been working hard to put things back in place where it was important to have things in place. So that's my take there. So that was ESXi free. Go get Advantage, or become a vExpert, or go buy a standard edition license, right? And start using vCenter and move your career forward. And then that's what I'd say there. None of the technology is going away. In fact, the technology is getting stronger. We're putting more money into engineering, so this is actually really good for us, for VMware community, for everything. And our competitors are certainly taking time to make hateful videos out there, right? As I suppose, I don't make hateful videos, right? I have never spoken ill of Nutanix or any of the other, Microsoft, or any of the other. They come to our shows. We try to compete with them where we compete, and we try to be partners with them where it makes sense. And I never get angrier or angry. So to all those people making angry videos, it shows that I think that we're going to win because we're professional. We build great products. We work on the technology, and we're VMware, right? And we're still VMware. So yeah, that's my take on. Well, all right. So last in my list, Corey, licensing. And I got to ask you this, Julia, this is too early for you, so you won't recognize this, but it's great to have you on camera. Great to see you here, and happy to have you around. But licensing, Corey, do you remember in 2011, Paul Moritz announced a thing called vRAM licensing, right? So maybe some of you haven't been with VMware that long, but in the day, on the community platform, we had to set up monitoring, because I think those were the days when you were running VMTN, and there was a
Yeah.
thread that was talking about VRAM licensing, and it was like the highest traffic thread of all times on VMTN in the forums, right? It was just
Right.
off the charts. And if I remember right, it was they were charging you dollars for any vSphere implementation, ESX, right? That how much memory you had allocated to the ESX instance was how much you had to pay us, right? So if you wanted 2 gigabytes or 4 gigabytes or a terabyte, and I think that's where the monster VM started showing up, where you needed 2 terabytes of data required licensing, and you were going to have to spend $50,000 on a license because of the memory utilization of some of these in-memory data implementations, where you put a ton of memory and you just run the whole DB in memory, right? So you remember that whole time?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that was like 2011, 2012.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and everybody went crazy. But if you look at what VMware was trying to do, it is the same thing that they're trying to do now, 10 years or whatever, 2011 to 2024. That's 15 years, which was they were trying to look at how to fund a big corporate development environment, right? Like, you need a lot of engineers, you need kernel engineers, you need hardware engineers, you need the number of engineers you have to keep all of this running to have a seamless virtual machine, be able to bump from one machine to the other. And, Sun tried to do it with Java in the old days, write once, run everywhere, right? And they couldn't make that work. It's hard to make a container that'll run across all the different hardware platforms that are out there, right? And so a lot of engineers were in California, we're in Palo Alto. It's expensive. So they were always trying to figure out, like, okay, if virtual machine, if CPUs are getting faster and faster, more cores on a single chip and faster, how do you build a licensing model that allows you to grow by that? And you could do licensing per VM, you could do licensing per amount of memory, and everybody went crazy on the memory licensing. That was just a mess, right? Because memory is such a dynamic thing that trying to figure out how much memory you're going to use, for a given set of hardware is like, you can do it, but like, I don't want to have to do that, right? Like, I don't. That's
a huge task.
Yeah, I don't want to have to do that. I kind of look at the new Broadcom licensing, and I think they're still trying to do the same thing. Everybody that takes over VMware and looks at how we're selling our products goes, like, how are we going to do this, right? Like, well, we're giving away free at the bottom end, and and then the medium end and the top end. Like, how do we simplify this? Yeah, how do we build it so that we have a growing revenue as you get more capability out of your ever increasing Moore's law hardware, right? And I think Broadcom is doing very similar thing, where they're still offering vSphere Standard Edition, right? They still have it. It got vSphere Enterprise Edition, and I don't know if it's Enterprise or Enterprise Plus. Then you have VCF and VVF, right? So top bundles. So they have 4 top bundles. I can still get my standard vSphere Edition. The thing that they've done now is they've moved to subscription. And when Adobe moved, when Adobe moved to subscription, I hated that, right? I mean, that's still one of the reasons I go back to Pirate Bay and and get me a what do they call that? What are the
Torrent?
Torrent thing. Yeah, that's the only reason I still every once in a while spin up a BitTorrent, is to go see if I can find a hacked Adobe product, right, that doesn't deal with the subscription license manager. But over time, I've come to accept it, right? I've just come to accept that you're going to pay Adobe, $300 a year for a subscription to Photoshop and to Premiere to do video editing. And that's the 2 I use. I don't use Acrobat. I'm not a graphics guy, but I do use Photoshop on occasion, to make banners and community tweets and, merge stuff together, get myself in trouble with branding, that kind of stuff. But over time, Frankie, you, and others now, I approve the ticket when it comes in and says buy Adobe subscription, because I have to approve the yearly annual up on the subscription PO, right, to Adobe. And every time I do, I kind of cringe, but I've gotten used. I mean, it is the way software is being delivered. You can expense the software versus amortize it over 4 or 5 years. You can just take the expense in 1 year. It's an expense. And if you look at everything you're buying from a software perspective, from YouTube upgrades to Apple Plus upgrades to you name it, anything's a piece of software. I'm going to buy it as a service. I'm going to buy it as a subscription. It's the way of the world. And VMware has held out on that, right? It's 2024, and VMware, you could still buy a perpetual license and run it until hell freezes over, right? Like, I ran my vSphere 3 up until like 4 years ago, right? Just kept running, right? Like I just kept running it.
It's like your Mac laptop.
Yeah, exactly. I have a 2010 Mac laptop, and I'm like, you know what? It does what I need it to do, right? Like, I glue it together with epoxy every once in a while. And that's just old school. But VMware is finally going, okay. And Raghu had been moving this. We have different CEOs. Gelsinger came in and threw away the VRAM licensing, right? Paul Moritz, he was the CEO before Gelsinger. He tried to do it. Pat Gelsinger came in and turned it off, right? Said no. Pat Gelsinger didn't move to subscription, right? He stayed in the, just the pure licensing model. He never tried to. In the last year or so, he started talking about subscription, but he just stayed in perpetual licensing. New CEO, new management structure. They're coming in and they want to accelerate that. They want to get us to subscription, right? And subscription is more. It just costs more. Like Adobe, we used to buy the Adobe Photoshop for $500, and we would run on that license for 5 years, right?
Yeah,
that's $100 a year, right? That's how much it average cost. And then for me, I'd run it for like 8 years, right? Then I'd buy a new $500 license from Pirate Bay. I mean, from Adobe, right? So now you run the subscription license manager for Adobe, and I don't mind the money as much as I hate that something is running in on my machine in the background, checking to make sure that I've got Photoshop up and licensed properly. So I don't like their little management apps. That's the most annoying thing for me. But everybody is running on subscription now, right? Everybody, right?
Absolutely. I mean, you even use your iPhone. Sure, you can get the free app, but every single thing in there is going to be based on subscription, right? Everything is moving that direction. I just bought the Adobe Suite personally, last week. The whole thing. I don't remember what it cost me, but yeah, it's the monthly fee. And you're right. I would do the same thing. I would buy a personal Adobe license or anything else piece of software, and I would keep that as long as I possibly could because I didn't want to buy another $500 license every single year, right? But yeah, it's and having it monthly versus just the overall expensive $500 is better for me.
That has an advantage.
I appreciate that.
Advantage. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was looking at the enterprise license because I was upgrading my own server and I was going to go off ESXi, and I looked at it like, how much does it actually cost? And I actually looked at the subscription, and the subscription is less painful because you can buy the standard edition for like, I don't know what it was, like, whatever it was, $700 a year or something, right? Versus the perpetual license was going to cost me $2,000 or whatever. It's like, but then I had it forever, but I could spend $700 now, and I could pay for it later. And so, yeah, subscription gives you that lower cost entry point for sure, right? Now, if you're running an enterprise, Corey, when you went to high school, did you go to Burger King and how much was the cost of your, if you went to lunch, over the recess break or whatever, we used to pile a bunch of people in my 69 Camaro, and we'd go over to the Burger King and we all pile out of this thing. What was the cost in your mind of how much it would cost you for lunch? Do you remember?
$4 or $5.
$4 or $5. That's my thing. So everything for me now, I value in a Burger King lunch, right? Everything is one lunch, right? Like, oh, that's 2 lunches, right? Like, or, and I'm stuck in that financial model of how many lunches am I paying for things, right? To this day, I look at things and go, well, that's 3 lunches or that's 4 lunches, right? But what I don't do is I don't look at how much money I'm actually earning anymore, right? I don't compare it to, like, if I had to compare that lunch back then was about 75% of my income per day, right? I needed $2.50 for gas for the Camaro, and I needed $5 for lunch. And I used to charge people to ride in my Camaro, right? So that we could all go to lunch. I would try to get like a buck or two from everybody just to pay for the gas and, sometimes my own meal, right? Like, I don't look at things and go, well, now I make, $1,000 a day or whatever it is that I make. And then that lunch is like, even if McDonald's now is $12 for a lunch, I still think, oh my God, that's twice as much for what it was. I don't look at how much money I make now, right? Now that lunch is 1/1000th of, what I make on a day, or whatever it is. Right. And it's like, I think we forget that when we're looking at vSphere and we're looking at pricing, and pricing changes. We forget that the rest of the world has gotten expensive or it has moved, and we're making more money. They're making more. Everybody's making more. The volumes of data going through the platforms are bigger. The capacity of the platforms we're using is much different and much more, and now businesses are relying on this. This is their core business. Your data and your AI and everything is your business now, right? 10 years ago, it wasn't your business. We ran mail servers and calendar and, things that weren't necessarily your business on these. I feel like that's at play here when we're talking about licensing.
Yeah, I would agree with you. Absolutely. I remember, when COVID hit, the hardware costs of hardware jumped up, skyrocketed. My wife works for a tech company, and she was telling me, some of the quotes that they were giving the customers were just through the roof. Right? We didn't have that issue, right? Because we're software, right? But yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So that's my licensing response to everybody, and in the community, right? It's like, we're all making really great money because of the core tech. And I see them doubling down on the core tech, which is good for our career, good for our community, good for everything, right? And there's a lot of people out there that will, try to attack us going, oh, VMware is getting more expensive and they're ignoring their customer. No, I don't look at any of that. I look at if they were freezing the development teams or moving them to India or, on vSphere, doing stuff that hurt the products, then I would be upset. Right. This is just, catching up with the market, right? Keeping the business healthy, right? Keeping all the investment we put in the products and our careers healthy, right? You don't want to give yourself away to the point where you just put everybody out of business, right? You do want to make sure that everything is healthy. So I think there's edge cases. I think education in some places on how to get people licensing is important. I think there's a lot of shifting that's happening that I think we're continuing to work with, right? And some of them they're good, like BU participation in sub-programs. I think some of them are challenges that we have to work on, like Flings and making sure people still have access to Flings while we transition. And then there are some things that are negative that we're going to try to fix, right? So
absolutely.
Yeah. That's what I'd say. And so personal thank you to you, Mr. Corey Romero, for work doing, like, I think you did several overnighters in the last week or so where you just were grinding away, getting things done between VExperts and awards. And then I call you going, we got to get the Flings going. We have to.
I've done 6 overnighters. I actually looked at how many hours I worked. And from it was like last week, February 11th, like last week, there were like 531 hours or something like that. And I worked 398 of them.
That's
right. Yeah. And it was just to go. I need to get, there's so many more improvements that need to be, that need to happen with VExpert. Need to make sure that the applications are done correctly. Make sure I look at every single appeal. Like there's just so much, right? Like how many improvements can we make to the platform, right? I've been writing, PHP code to do different upgrades to the platform that just need to happen, right? And so yeah, I've been investing a lot of time, and and it's just I know what needs to happen in the community. I know what needs to happen for the platform. I know what's happened for the program as well. And I'm just always willing to jump in when I need to.
Yeah. So, and I think everybody out there has said thank you to you and to me and to the whole team 100 times. So we appreciate all the thank yous. And it is a rewarding job. And we had been on the cruise ship love boat for the last year and a half while the Broadcom stuff was trying to get resolved, and when we were going to get new management and what we were going to do, and we knew there'd be a lot of work in the transition. So
Right.
we are paying that price a little bit right now, but it's worth it because we had an easy time for a year while the acquisition was happening, and now we're just catching up, and I'm sure it'll get lighter over time. But then we appreciate all the positive community members and what they're saying, and keeping people that are complaining, keeping them in check, keeping them real, getting them real information from Advantage is going away to things are going. I had a lot of rumors and a lot of things that were just people responding to things that people were putting out there, and some of it is FUD from our competitors for sure, right? Some of it is real that we're dealing with, but so thanks for everybody in the vExpert community and everybody at VMUG for just keeping everything real and keeping the conversations real, and keeping I don't want to say positive, but a lot of it is actually positive, and it's just explaining why we think it is positive, that it's actually good. And then some of it's neutral. There's some negative, but appreciate everybody doing that. So yeah, good that we got Flings out last night.
Absolutely.
Talk about a podcast today. Julie, I know we have somebody next week. Do you know who we've got scheduled for the podcast next week?
We have Graham Barker.
Graham Barker. What's we talking about?
Oh, Graham.
Yeah, he's one of the greatest member of our community.
All right. Good. Well, good. We'll have Graham Barker on next week. What are we talking about? I think it's the converter.
Yeah, vCenter converter, the new
vCenter converter beta is out. I think there's a beta going out on that, so we'll talk about that. And then Julia's back, so she's lining us up guests. So that'll be fun. We've looked at Dynamic Signal and see what's been trending, and we're getting all the trending invites out. So should get some good guests now that you're back, Julia. So thanks a lot for doing that. And Tony Foster. B barbecue. I know we're running along here, but you do any I did ribs again. You got any barbecue stories?
I don't have any barbecue stories. I've been absent from my barbecue this week, and I'm sure it's missing me.
It's probably because you're raking in all that gold coin from the Dell announcement, up 30%, sales up 30%. The hardware business might be doing okay. I don't know. You guys selling AI engines over there? I don't know what you guys are doing over there, but it must be working out pretty well.
AI is a huge part of it. If you listen to the
earnings report
earnings report on it, AI is a big part of it. So yay AI.
Yo AI. I don't know what it does, but I know it's gonna do amazing things. I would say that a buddy of mine had to write a letter to the contractor agency he works with, and I helped him write like what he wants a raise, right? So I helped him craft like what he should say to try to get their $5 an hour raise out of his agency. And he went, let's run that through ChatGPT, and ChatGPT came back with like an excellent, took what I had told him to write and then said, oh yeah, but you're missing X and you're missing Y and you should say this or that and thank them for all the hours you've been built. And I was like, holy smokes, wow, that was insane. Not just rewrote something new, but gave them coaching on why they were missing some key subjects in a contract ask, right? And I'm like, all right. I'm starting to understand it. I guess that was really good. So like, all right, maybe I don't need to be here anymore. Right. Like it could be. All right. Well, that's the end of the show. Thanks a lot for listening to the very end, and go make yourself some barbecue. I did some barbecue ribs, smoked them 3, 2, 1 as always. They were good. I'm trying to eat healthier. I got a kid's wedding coming up in July, so I'm going to try to just. I barbecued artichokes. I've been messing with artichokes. I smoked some artichokes on the smoker, right? Which I got a recipe for. You boil them for a little bit, then you put them on the smoker. You put some butter and olive oil on them, and they turned out okay. I tried them on the grill with Kingsford charcoal, boiled them, and then put them on with oil and garlic. Put them on the grill. they turned out pretty well too. Crispy, nice, smoky, whatever. I like the charcoal ones better than the smoked ones. I thought the smoked ones didn't really do that much for artichokes. But what I would say is that artichokes for me is just all about dipping them in the butter. So like it's like, I don't care how I
Mayonnaise. You
put
got to
them in
use
fire, but-
mayonnaise.
Yeah, nah, I'm a butter
You're
guy.
doing it wrong.
I can't do that. All right, we're at the end of the show. Thanks a lot. We'll see everybody again next week with Graham Barker. Until then, go get some barbecue. Have a good one.
Absolutely. Thanks,
Thank you
everyone.
all. Bye.